G'day everyone and welcome to the Trekzone Spotlight. Matt Miller with you in the northern suburbs of Brisbane, and I'm standing here with Lee Sargent. Lee, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me along, yeah.
Now, you're an illustrator that was a marketing guru. What sparked the change?
Well, I wouldn't say marketing guru. I'm a marketing guy who does marketing stuff. That's the way I always describe that. But I'm also an illustrator on the side, and it's actually something that I'm actually more interested in that's where my kind of passions are starting. You know, everyone has their passion projects on their side type of thing. Well, illustration's mine, and it'd be wonderful to do it kind of full time, but I'm more than happy right now just doing it daily. So yeah.
Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit because you've been a Trekkie for a long time.
I have. I don't like how you said how long then. I've been a Trekkie since I was probably, I'm going to say 3 or 4 maybe.
So 24 years ago?
Yeah, let's say 24 years ago. I'm 40 years old, so we're looking at 35 years thereabouts of solid kind of Star Trek fan. I remember the Corbomite maneuver is actually my earliest memory of Star Trek. As a young kind of kid, I remember watching mainly the puppet, Baylock's puppet. And so that's kind of really stuck out in my head type of thing. So looking back years later, I was like, oh my God, I was watching Star Trek really, really early on. And I also, one of my fondest memories of Star Trek, and also one of my earliest memories of illegal, not downloading, but bootleg copies, is that Wrath of Khan. My aunt, who used to visit the US a fair bit, got a bootleg copy of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and brought it back to Australia, and my parents were watching it with them, and I had to go to bed and wasn't allowed to watch it. But I always remember because it was the sequence with the ears. So I didn't quite see the slug going into the ear, but they must have known to send me to bed in time, so it didn't scar me for life. But so I had this kind of history of particularly my mother was very into science fiction. Possibly more Star Wars than Star Trek, so I don't know if I grew up to be a disappointment, I don't know. Although she did kind of, she always loved kind of Star Trek and has grown to love Star Trek. And so, yeah, it's been with me all my life and got me through, periods of my life which weren't great. It's always been a constant there. So, yeah, really, really passionate about it. So it's a topic that comes really easily. So, yeah.
And it leads perfectly into something that you're doing here in 2018, Star Trek 365.
That's right.
It's not the first time you've done this, though.
No, it's not. This is the second time that I've done it. Back in 2014, I took the first run at it. So, and what it is, it's doing a Star Trek drawing every day of the year. Well, publishing a new Star Trek illustration every day of the year. So what I do is, and originally back in 2014 it was mainly on Tumblr, every day a new Star Trek scribble would go up. And that was really an interesting experiment because it was one of those things where you get, after a couple of months, so we're 20 days into, when we're recording this, we're 20 days into the first month of the year, so I know that I've done 20 drawings. When you're at about 136, or when you're at 200, it's really exhausting, and you start stripping away your illustrative process of kind of anything that you add on top of your own personal kind of, I like this stylized kind of whatever type of thing. But once you're really exhausted, you really strip back to the raw bones of what your style is, and that's how back in 2014 that was the purpose of it, was to just smash myself with 365 drawings every day, not to give myself any time off, so that I could really develop and discover what my style was. So flash forward a couple of years, I did a bit of a challenge at the end of last year and it just felt like coming home, doing a Star Trek drawing every day. And so I'm like, you know what, I really should do this again this year. And so I made a decision about a month out that I would do it again. And so every day of this year, I'll be publishing a new Star Trek illustration, and it's fun seeing the journey from some of the drawings that were done back in 2014. I can't even look at them. and doing them this year, I'm hoping that they'll all be a little bit more polished. We're now in a style that I'm comfortable with and that is consistent. So back in 2014, I did early in the year, all the characters had noses. By the end of the year, they didn't have noses. Halfway through the year, they had round circles with like white circles as eyes. And by the end of the year, they've got the dots, which is familiar to my style now. So that was really interesting to kind of go on that journey, and now to almost 2 or 3 years later, pick up that journey and revisit it and see kind of where I'm at today. So,
as I said, you've changed career path into illustration. All of those sort of changes throughout the year, is that more discovering what your style is, or is it laziness?
Yeah, no, it's more discovering the style. I think you've got to try things. As I said, this is it's one of those things where I'm. You pick stuff up. You're constantly, and I don't think anyone ever kind of gets to a stage. You look at someone like even Jack Kirby, his illustrations when he was younger compared to his older illustrations, and certainly a Jack Kirby illustration is a Jack Kirby illustration, but there'll be subtle differences that he's kind of honed over the years, and you constantly see stuff. Like particularly today, it's amazing. Like we have access to kind of so many I see so many indie creators right now who are just doing amazing work, and they're not just the popular stuff that gets shown, through comic books or whatever, or advertising, etc. You're actually getting to see someone who's, in their bedroom just drawing and have got a unique vision, and so you get to see all these things. And of course, as an illustrator or an artist, you were influenced by all these things, and so throughout the year I might kind of see a new different way of doing hairstyles, and go, like, I'm heavily influenced by manga illustrations, the Asian kind of style. I really love simplicity of that and stuff like that, and so every once in a while there might be a rush of blood to the head, and everyone gets a pointy chin or big hair, and you just refine it. You keep refining it until you get back to something which is just more true to yourself. And that's really where, that's kind of coming in. So I don't know if you're ever that comfortable to kind of step out of your comfort zone and say, well, you know what, I am I'm a marketing manager right now, and I'm reasonably good at it. And I enjoy it. And it pays bills and stuff like that, whereas the wonderful world of illustration does not seem to be the most secure job in the whole world.
Lucrative.
It doesn't seem to be the most lucrative job, and I'm not a starving artist, living with my parents or something like that. So I do have kind of bills to pay. So it's not a matter of. It is a matter of. It's hard. It's a hard question because it's kind of like having that confidence to back yourself, and I'm working on that as far as saying, and as I said, I'm 40 years old, so it's quite a life change to turn around and say, well, now I'd like to go into this creative kind of industry where there's a lot of young people with cutting edge. Like, I don't do things digitally. Everyone does stuff digitally, so, and it's, whether that's a differentiator for me or not, I think that's kind of interesting. But it's not laziness. It's not laziness is the answer to that question. It's just I think it's building on something and having that kind of dream to work towards, I guess. And I'm happy that even if it never came to pass, if I'm still a marketing manager, in 10 years' time, I'd be perfectly fine with that as long as I'm still doing something on the side. So, yeah.
Now, you were telling me off air about a story talking about the creative choices and stuff like that with the colour palette, and you'd drawn Dr. Bashir as with a white skin tone, with Caucasian, and there was some feedback to that.
There was. It was interesting because the conversation we were having, we were talking about the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and my style of illustration, probably because it's very scribble, kind of simplistic. I often will get people will credit it and say, how, you can actually do a lot with just a couple of lines, and there is a talent in that. But it's a talent in making it look very simplistic. one of the byproducts of that is that you easily open yourself up to criticism as far as, well, none of my characters have noses. So, yes, I understand that. And also, they don't look like that in real life. I get that. So what happens is, like, I work towards simplification. And one of the things is when I started colouring the illustrations, and originally whenever I used to do these, they were I used to just do them in black and white, stuff like that. And then I kind of branched out into watercolour paint, and I had a very simplistic model as far as, like, it always felt weird drawing her hura and not acknowledging her skin colour, because I think that was such an important part of who she is as far as, representative of the African Americans. And so it always felt weird to have her black and white and not her skin tone kind of there. So when I went into colours, it was great to start painting her as an African American with dark skin tones. But I was very simple with that. So I had, you were either African American skin tone or you were Caucasian. And Dr. Bashir, who is obviously a man of colour, I never connected it in my head. I never even thought about it. And that's coming from obviously a very pasty white guy. So coming from that background, I never kind of registered in my head. So this feedback that I got was a person contacted me, and she said, and very, very nice about it too, but it really freaked me out because I was like, I did not mean to kind of offend or even to even start that. What basically happened was she's saying, well, look, you paint Cisco as a proud African American, and I think that's great, but you don't paint Dr. Bashir as a man of colour. And I was kind of like, I went to defend myself immediately. It was really weird because I was like, well, so I had to add more tones to it was literally just, he was the same skin tone as Miles O'Brien, which is ridiculous and completely wrong. And so that was actually a really, really great feedback point, because they came back to me and went, well, no, there are broad spectrum. Now, in fairness, though, I still, if you're a Trill or you're a Bajoran, you generally will get the same skin tone, but that's just where we're at. So.
Well, Lee, you're 20 days into the year.
Yep.
So you've got 345 more drawings to go. You're lucky it's not a leap year. So
that's true. That is true.
You better get back and keep drawing.
That's it. Well, thank you very much for having me. This is where I plug my website, or
yes, go for it.
StarTrek365.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, which is at Lee Sargent, LEESARGENT. Basically, I publish them there every day. So yeah, come and join in the conversation. We've got this really kind of cool community around it, which is really nice, and I think that's been one of the clear benefits of, apart from working on my style, is just building this kind of network of amazing kind of Star Trek fans who are just the absolute best people, really, and really supportive of each other. And I often hear stories about people having negative experiences with fans, and I just not seen that. I think even people who disagree with other, Discovery has thrown the cat amongst the pigeons, and there is divided opinion on that. And I think for a brief period I was like, oh, I'm not sure who you people are anymore. But it's actually, I think overall the core people have kind of all come together and been really supportive, even of those who love Discovery and those who hate it. They've kind of, some people have found middle ground, and I think they're the mainstays and they're kind of core of the community. So they're really, that's great. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Lee, once again, that website is StarTrek365.com. Lee, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.